Once we have a child, once we are born, our body is subject to disease, illnesses, and death. None of us can escape that. So by fearing diseases, illnesses, and death, it's just going to give us a lot of worrying and discomfort, anxiety. It's something that we can't actually escape. Instead, what if we transform this fear into doing something positive about it? Such as living a healthy lifestyle, eating food that our body would be nourished by. So instead of eating a lot of carbohydrates that may end up causing our body to put on a lot of weight, is to eat in moderation. Now, this is the durian season. Most people like durian. It's not to say don't eat durian, but eat maybe 3 to maximum 10 seeds. We don't have to overindulge and eat 2, 3 durians, which would be harmful to our body because there's a sudden huge boost of sugar and fat into this body that doesn't need that amount. Lifestyle that is going to be healthy would be to drink less alcohol, or better still, not drink at all, because the doctors and researchers have unveiled that any amount of alcohol is actually bad for the body. Eating fatty food is not good for the body. So eating more vegetables, more fruits, and just a certain necessary amount of meat would be sufficient. And even when we eat meat, is to eat more lean meat instead of fatty meat. Exercise regularly, and that means at least once a week. Better still is 2 to 3 times a week. Go cycling, go walking, go running, stretching, yoga. So these are things that we can do positively. Instead of indulging in fear, is to do something about it to help the outcomes that we fear from happening too regularly or too soon. If we want to tempt death, then we can get involved in sports that are very dangerous, risky in nature. But if we don't do any of those, then we're not tempting death, nor are we tempting injuries. So I hope that instead of fearing is to see what you can do positively to address the fear. Fear in itself is not a bad thing because it helps us to keep safe. That's what the sensation or the emotion of fear is for. That tightening of the body that happens, especially the chest and also the shoulders. And that is a reaction in the body to keep us safe, to get ourselves out of a dangerous situation. So when we notice that discomfort, it is an alert to us that we need to get ourselves from that dangerous situation. That is by focusing on what is a safer thing to do. If you have someone who violates you, then you need to ensure that you have the right protection. Come to us for support and help. Or, if it makes sense, go to the police to get protection. Don't just live with the fear, especially when you're under very dangerous situation that you're living in. Do not subject yourself day in, day out. Do something positive. So, be aware of this mind. And that's why mindfulness practices, learning mindfulness has become such a big thing. Because we start to realize that this mind has such an ability to create this fearful emotion that we end up feeling so uncomfortable with. It can also be associated with shame. A shame that comes from our judgment of we've done something wrong. And we don't want people to find out We don't even want ourselves to feel that we know about this. And this whole denial and trying to run away from what our mind is thinking becomes a double whammy of emotional upheaval. Whatever mistakes we've made, how terrible is it? Maybe you had an affair. Maybe you had taken something that didn't belong to you. Maybe you're going through a divorce. Maybe you've been asked to leave from employment. But nothing to be shameful, because after all, we're all humans. We can make mistakes. And if we can admit to it, we don't have to announce it to the whole world, but share it with someone that you can trust. As they say, confess it. And practice putting the judgment aside. One mistake, one setback in life doesn't define you for the rest of your life. Even someone who has stolen is not a thief forever. It was one act of theft. And if he gets arrested, he gets put in jail or gets a punishment, even that is limited in time. Sometimes shame causes us to feel it for a prolonged period of time because we feel that we shouldn't have done it. It's not right. And it could be associated to our belief system, believing that, we should be condemned, or, this is a terrible act, that we are so weak. It's just going to add more pain to what you have already felt that you shouldn't have done. So conditioning does have an impact to the amount of trauma that you experience. It's not just the act itself, but how you interpret what you have done and the judgments that are layered on top of it. If we can accept, yes, I have made a mistake. I have allowed myself to be tempted, and I will make good. I will work on not letting it happen again. If we have been asked to leave a job, then reflect on what is it that I have learned from that? What mistakes have I made? What wrong moves did I make? So I will not repeat it. Otherwise, it becomes a pattern. If it's a pattern and we don't have awareness of it, then chances are it will repeat. And it's not helpful because we haven't gained any wisdom from it. So look for the lessons in whichever situations we feel regretful or remorseful of. By doing this, our wisdom will grow. By indulging in the judgments and beating ourselves up, and it's also called self-bullying and self-pitying, it's not going to help us move forward. So let me just check the chat if there's anything else that may have come up. Okay, so somebody said here, the fear of being judged. We are always being judged. As I give this presentation, I'm being judged by you. And I have no control over how I'm being judged, how you are judging me, but I do my best. And I'm being mindful of what I'm saying and my facial expression as much as I can to try to reduce any negative judgments. But no matter how well I do and how my best efforts are, I am likely to attract some negative judgments. So it's to accept that's just how things are, how life is, because we have no control over other people's minds. What's important is for us to live an authentic life, meaning that we are an authentic person, that we don't try to pretend to be someone we're not, because otherwise we would be walking around like as though we have a mask on. And we know that that's not who we really are in terms of the image we project. So when we are honest about who we are and we live a life of greater consistency, then people will see, people will get to know, and people will ask around to check. If someone thinks that you are not a nice person, trust that there will be someone in this world who will dispel that, especially when you do a lot of acts of kindness. There will be times we slip up. There will be times when we may not be mindful. In our moments of being mindless, we could be harsh with our words. We could be raising our voice. But that is normal. We are humans. We can't be completely zen, as one would say. So be authentic, not pretend, because it's really hard to pretend. And then we don't feel good about ourselves. So do lots of acts of kindness. So from time to time, if you're mean, that's okay. This is like a glass of water, and if there's a lot of sugar in it, it will be sweet. And at times when you're mean, it's like having a spoonful of small spoonful or drops of salt into it. It doesn't turn the whole glass of water to be salty. It will still remain sweet because predominantly you are kind. So do as much acts of kindness as you can, because it also uplifts us. And it's wonderful to feel that sense of, wow, that was an act of kindness. So what I usually would do is when I am at a hawker center and I see a lady coming to clear, or a man who clears the tables, is to do an act of kindness by saying thank you. And I would take out $1 or $2 and give it to the lady or the man, like a tip. And he feels so appreciated, and that he is cared for, and that this community is not uncaring. And it really lights up their faces and it makes their day. Imagine we can make someone's day with just $1 or $2. Isn't that wonderful to be able to do it? For many of us, we won't even miss it if we dropped a $1 coin or a $2 note. Therefore, we can give that away as a gift. So I encourage you to do that instead of feeling that, we don't have enough. Many of us can spare a change. And for those of us who can, please do. Okay, so I've got some questions here which I will intersperse. Does mindfulness means forever focus and always minding our actions and not being ourselves at times? Being mindful means that we are aware of what we're thinking when we're thinking it. We are aware of what we're feeling as we're feeling. We are aware of what we're saying as we're saying, and what we're doing as we're doing. That's what being mindful of. Is so that we don't unnecessarily or mindlessly cause anyone to be hurt and to commit any harm, unless really that is our intention. And if that's the intention, it's also to be mindful or aware, which are two interchangeable words, of what the consequences are. So we are being ourselves. It's not pretending. If anything, it's actually re-engineering this mind not to be taken or swept away by our emotions, which often leads us to be very stressed and therefore being very reactive towards other people. Okay. So someone said here, my son went through major surgery with risk of it happening again. I live on the edge of a cliff and the threat hanging over me. Well, as I mentioned earlier, the terms and conditions of being born is that there's a limited lifespan and death is inevitable. In between, there will be diseases and illnesses and even accidents. We can't be living on the tethers of how things can go wrong and that we're going to lose someone. It is also precisely because of this limited lifespan that we all have that gives us a sense of meaning in life. Imagine the people that we have in our life are going to live forever. Then time becomes meaningless. Why do we even care to spend time with them? But because time is limited, that time becomes precious and our moments spent with them are treasured. And when these times are treasured, we would then spend it in a way that it is uplifting, it adds value, and it's mutually enjoyable. So look at diseases and illnesses as a reminder of how precious time is. And any diseases could happen at any time, or even an accident. So it doesn't mean that just because someone had a certain disease or illness, that it will recur again, unless we are creating the conditions for it to recur in a more likely manner. So for my dog, for example, even after removing the tumors, I have no idea if these tumors are malignant or benign. I will have to wait for the results. But either way, I know my dog's lifespan is limited. But what I have done is change her diet, because I think that perhaps eating beef every day may not be the best diet for the dog, as most cows are pumped with steroids. And there is a chance that this meat that is so pumped up with steroids may have encouraged this growth of tumor. So if I change it to more vegetable and also fish, which she loves, I don't know it will work, but I just feel that it may be a positive action that I can take. Feeding her fish definitely costs a whole lot more because fish is much more expensive than beef. But if I care and if I love her, and knowing that the time she has left is limited, then I will do what I can to offer her something different that could actually help her to have a healthier life while she has the time. I hope that helps, because worrying is not going to increase the time that we have with someone. And it actually takes away the happiness of being with each other. So I'd like to share a little bit about anger. Anger often comes up because it is a reaction to not wanting things a certain way. We often want things to turn out our way. There's nothing wrong with it, but we need to be accepting that things will not always turn out the way we want. It's just not realistic. So when things don't turn out the way we want, is to say, this time it didn't turn out the way I want. And just check, did I miscommunicate? If there's a pattern of miscommunicating, then perhaps we need to change the way we communicate. The way things didn't turn out the way I want, what can I do to bring about the conditions that it can turn out the way I want next time? Or simply accept that it's okay. It's not a big deal, and I'm not going to make a big deal of it. But if there was something I could improve on, And that will be my lesson, and that will be my takeaway. Getting angry at someone else because of the way they are, it's like getting angry at the chair and say, why are you constructed this way? Because there is no way we can change someone else, or if we've bought the chair, that we are going to re-engineer the chair. We can't re-engineer other people. There's only one person we can re-engineer, and that's oneself. I can instead accept the person as he or she is and learn how to work with him or her better. To look out for his good points, his strengths, and to accept his weaknesses instead of picking out his weaknesses and feeling frustrated with it. Because what's the point? I will only frustrate myself time and time again. But if I can accept that that's his weakness, then I'm not going to expect that to suddenly change. Or all the nagging in the world is not going to change it. And I will therefore work around his or her weakness. When I focus on the strengths of the person, then I'm able to leverage and tap on his abilities. So if you've been getting annoyed, frustrated, and upset with a person, the same person over and over again over something that is similar, then maybe you may want to step back and look at him, be accepting, and change the way you respond to him. That's just the way he is. If we don't accept, we're just going to get frustrated time again and again. Like someone who can't be relied on doing a specific job. And yet we want to give him that job and then get upset that he didn't do the job. Except that he can't do that job. Assign it to someone else. And maybe this person is in the wrong role. So recraft his role, change his responsibilities, make it known to him. And it's up to him whether he would want to change or otherwise. As long as he's not willing to change, there's nothing we can do. But if he's working for you, then maybe we need to shift him, or you can shift him to another team. But changing him, changing anyone for that matter, becomes a monumental task that is usually unachievable. I have come across women who says, I married him. Yes, I know he's like that, but I thought I can change him after we get married. How often you have heard that, and then the wife is so frustrated for the rest of the marriage. And I do have a suggestion for you. If you want to change a man, you change him before marriage, not after, because you still have leverage before marriage. But after marriage, it is going to be really hard, if not impossible. And for you men out there, if you think that your wife or your girlfriend won't change after marriage, chances are she will. She will become a mother. Hopefully she doesn't become a nagger. And when a woman becomes a mother, she becomes a very different person. So yes, your girlfriend will change after you marry her. And hopefully you can help her to become aware and help mold the changes. You can't change her, but if you can help her become aware, maybe then her changes would be not such a shock to you.